Hi there, my name is Karen Fabian and I'm the founder of Bare Bones Yoga, and thanks so much for taking a few minutes to watch this video. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, I'd love for you to go down and click the like button and also subscribe so that you'll know when I post a new video. So today I wanted to talk to you about one of the muscles in the shoulders that's known as a shoulder stabilizer. And stabilizing the shoulders when we're moving through a yoga practice is really, really important because we don't want the bones and the muscles to be kind of swimming around in an unsupported structure. And that's probably a little bit of exaggeration. The body has an amazing structural support to it between the bones and muscles and the fascia themselves and ligaments and tendons and all the other supporting structures. But in a dynamic movement like yoga, it can be really helpful if students understand the kinds of actions that they need to do to keep things nice and steady in the body as they're moving through that dynamic practice. Now, one of the muscles that tends to be kind of weak in people is the serratus anterior. And you can think of the serratus anterior as the connection between your scapula and your rib cage. It literally runs from ribs 2 through 8, I believe 2 through 8, up to the medial border of the scapula. And what it does is it keeps the scapula kind of anchored to the back. The scapula themselves move on the back in lots of different ways. The scapula can move up, they can move down, they can move in, they can move out, and they can also upwardly rotate and downwardly rotate. So when you look at a muscle like the serratus anterior, it keeps the scapula more kind of glued onto the back. And not glued in a way that they can't move at all, but just again, a little steadier than floating around back there. And when I say floating around, what I mean is you're trying to use the serratus anterior instead of using other muscles, like the upper trapezius, which people tend to use a lot. And the upper trapezius, because it's the upper part, elevates the shoulder blades. So I'm going to show you what it looks like when the upper trapezius and not the serratus is used when moving from high to low push-up. If someone comes into low push-up and uses their upper trapezius, their elbows tend to go out and their scapula tend to elevate. However, if they are using their serratus anterior, they look more like this. So you can see in that second one, the elbows were hugged in, the upper traps were not elevating the scapula. Now, because the serratus anterior tends to be weak in people, and that's just something that we know from looking at exercise science information, not so much in the yoga world, but because I have my background as a personal trainer as well, I have access to a lot of training information and data that is just part of that whole world. And one of the things in that world, from a fitness perspective, is just looking at what muscles tend to be weak or underactive in people. And the serratus is definitely up there. So when people come to yoga practice, many times yoga teachers don't understand, why are people always doing this? And the answer in many cases lies in this lack of strength in this key muscle, and our need as teachers to give people a chance to, 1, learn what the muscle is, and 2, activate it and strengthen it. So moving from high to low push-up is one way, but because that's a dynamic movement, it can be hard for people to get a sense of how to strengthen a muscle in the context of a dynamic movement. It can be a little bit easier to have them strengthen it when they're doing something still or steady. And so one way you can do that is you can have them do dolphin in this position here. So you can bring them down to the ground, emphasize to them you only want their elbows to be shoulder width apart, because notice if their elbows go too wide, the upper traps will tend to overtake the serratus. When they bring their elbows down, set them up at shoulder width, when they tuck their toes and lift their hips, it's really important that you tell them to push away from the ground and to hug their elbows in. If they don't hug their elbows in and their elbows go too wide, they're going to be using the upper traps again. So they're going to come down, they're going to hug their elbows in, they're going to press off their forearms, and then as they're holding it, you can say to them, I want you to see if you notice your scapula hugged onto your back, because that's what I want you to see if you can recreate when you come into low push-up. So you have them hold that for maybe 5 or 6 breaths, and then maybe a rest in child's pose, and then bring them into down dog and have them come forward and lower down and see if they can get a sense of it again. Another place where you can have them feel the serratus is if you bring them into this kind of forward fold scenario here, hug the elbows in, and it's the same thing. Another place that you can have them activate and feel the serratus is in crow pose, and even if they don't come up all the way, right, you can have them just set their knees into their arms, their upper arms, hug the elbows in again, and without using the upper traps, hugging the elbows in, pressing down into the ground, pulling the belly button in, and just kind of firming up the whole thing, and that should give them a sense of the action of the serratus anterior. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. This is kind of an interesting way to integrate anatomy lessons into your teaching and really give your students the nuts and bolts of what's happening rather than just kind of, you know, saying a couple of cues and not really giving them something to understand what's going on underneath the skin. So I want to tell you a couple of things. In June, I'm going to be launching the Bare Bones Yoga Practice Portal. And I'm going to continue to do YouTube videos here, which will be more instructional in nature in terms of little anatomy lessons. But if you're looking for a way to have one place, one portal with ongoing additions, it's a monthly membership where I'll be adding sequences with different areas of focus, different lengths, right? As well as workshops, live classes, and even some sequences where I'll integrate anatomy lessons, kind of like this, but longer sequences. So it's a monthly membership called the Bare Bones Yoga Practice Portal. And I will include the link here to the waitlist. It's going to launch in June, and if you sign up as a founding member, you'll get the best rate, and you'll keep that rate for the length of your membership. Number 2, I have a waitlist on my website for my signature program for yoga teachers called the Blueprint Learning Program. And that is my signature program all around teaching you how to learn anatomy, teaching you the nuts and bolts of what you need to know as a yoga teacher, and how to integrate it in really easy to understand ways with your students or for your students. So examples like this is a great way to illustrate just knowledge of anatomy and integrating it into your teaching. So if you're out there as a yoga teacher and you feel like, man, I just can't get my arms around this anatomy and I don't feel confident when I teach, I feel like I trip over my words, I spend all this time on YouTube looking for the answers to my anatomy questions, I promise you, once you take this program, your confidence will soar, your knowledge of anatomy, while it might not be perfect, will be built on such a stronger foundation, and you'll be able to share with your students in understandable ways what you know, and be able to help them when they have questions about different things going on in their yoga practice. So to sign up for the wait list, enrollment's not open now, but to sign up for the wait list for the Blueprint Learning Program, just go to my website, barebonesyoga.com. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to click subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Namaste.